Folks, I think you know that every time, I say it often and I mean it, every time I say a pledge to that flag, something happens deep inside my heart. Because I'm usually motivated by passion, and the passion that I saw when I started studying the lives of those people who fell in favor of that flag, through the many different actions of wars that we've taken, defenses of this country, defenses of our liberties, I always am touched by people who love this country. This has been a sad week. I'm going to talk a little bit about a patriot. We will be doing, before I go there, a farewell to Dan and Kathy Benefield, our co-director and co-directress. Well, you see, because I think that you've never caught that. What I think is a man's strength is the woman who supports him, and if he is in fact married to a wife, she is his strength. Listen, I know this, and so to Kathy, I want to say a special thanks for the work that Dan has meant to this caucus, and we will get into that a little bit later. And by the way, there's cake and ice cream back there, and we need to go ahead and consume it now. That cake says farewell to friends, and it's whenever you feel like going back there and having it, go get it. It won't interrupt what we're doing. But this has been a sad week. A week and a half ago, I learned of Professor Kaufman's passing. I don't know if everybody knows, but Professor Kaufman passed from his heart ailment. So it's very sad. So before I turn the mic over to Dan, I'm going to say a little something and have Doug bring a newspaper article up here that will be relevant to this man and what he's done in this caucus. Folks, we've been blessed in this caucus over the years. Professor Kaufman, I read his eulogy, and I could not believe every place and everything that this fellow has accomplished. And what was more amazing to me was that he believed in this caucus, and he believed that things could get done. And by the way, we did get some things done with Professor Kaufman in this caucus. He stood up against the University of Michigan. When the University of Michigan hired him, they brought him in as a professor of aeronautics, and he helped develop the missile, probably is solely responsible for the missile launch technologies of the Trident missile. Now, having that in his background, the university wanted, and this is one of the biggest things that I respect him for, so I'm going to talk about this, and then we're going to hear another issue here. But the University of Michigan wanted a University of China, which is a Harvard University, same as our MIT. They had professors over here that they wanted to teach. And so they ordered, not asked, Professor Kaufman to teach these Chi-Coms, Chinese communists, missile launch technologies of the Trident missile. He refused to do it, and he resigned in protest. Now, there were some other issues that surrounded his resignation, but you know what? He resigned honorably in a protest of a university that did not respect the integrity of the technologies that they were in care of. And if I ever remember Professor Kaufman for one thing only, that will be it. But there's so much more to that man. Doug Smith is going to come, and he's going to read an article. And Doug was a good friend of Professor Kaufman, and I'm going to have him say a word or two. But here's another issue that has come to light today in our world that Professor Kaufman tried to protect. So Doug, as you bring the article up, and what tribute you choose to do to Professor Kaufman is fine, if you have a few words. But this is very relevant, and I want it to be said to the caucus that Professor Kaufman cared so much about. So, come ahead.
I think that one of the projects that Bill worked on when he was a graduate student was there were problems with the engines for the Saturn V rocket, and so he and his professor basically were responsible for helping to work out those problems and put our astronauts on the moon. So that was one of his projects. He was very concerned about the university giving technology to China that was then being used to improve the Chinese military. And many of the technologies were what we call dual-use technologies. That is, that they have uses in sort of everyday life and industrial processes, but they also can be very important for military technology as well. And I think some of you may remember that we talked about a company that was acquired by our Governor Snyder. It was a San Jose company called Neophotonics, and they were a telecommunications company. They had a lot of patents, but they didn't have a lot of manufacturing. So when Governor Snyder bought the company, he merged it with a company in China. So all the manufacturing from this company was done in China, and their main client, where they sold more than half of everything they made to the giant telecommunication company called Huawei. So what Dennis was referring to was, in terms of today, was that there's an article in the New York Times entitled "U.S. Demands Records of Huawei's Dealings with Sanctioned Nations." So what they are investigating and what they suspect is that Huawei is re-exporting American technology that's been licensed to China or been allowed to be exported to China, and they're re-exporting it to Syria, to Iran, to North Korea, and other nations which are sanctioned by the United States and would not be approved to receive this technology. So I suspect that when they get to the bottom of this, that some of this technology that's being re-exported is going to be the technology that was developed at Neophotonics and exported when they merged the company with the Chinese company. So this would be something that Bill would be concerned about. He was also very concerned that there was a huge loophole in the university system, which was basically that graduate students could be taught things that Americans were not allowed to export to another country, and particularly not to a country like China. And yet, because they were graduate students, they could be taught this, they could take it back to China, and but it was technically not against the law because there was a loophole that allowed you to teach things to Chinese graduate students. Bill was a good friend, and we met primarily over these kinds of concerns, and we spent a lot of time going to various politicians in the state government up in Lansing and discussing some of these. We met with the FBI from time to time, and he talked about some of his concerns and what things he knew the university was doing. And so he was very concerned, and I hope that we continue to at least keep an eye on some of the things that he was concerned about.
Bill Kaufman's life ended in frustration and disappointment with the judicial system. He called me one day Well, he emailed me first. He got a bad decision from a judge over here, David Swartz. And he had some squatters that set up on his land. Now, some of you may not have heard what we began the caucus with. Professor Bill Kaufman passed away about a week and a half ago. Is that right? Maybe 2 weeks ago. And so we're talking about some of the things that were important to Bill Kaufman. And so the thing that this phone call to me, I'm going to pass on to you. The thing that frustrated him most as he left this world. So when he bought this piece of land that he was using for experimental purposes out in South Lyons, he had it state designated and federally approved for explosive technology research. So he was well respected. Oh, folks, I never realized. World renowned Bill Kaufman. How well respected he was. Whenever they would have a explosion, that they couldn't figure out, he would be called in to do research on it for the cause of it. But Bill, when he bought this land, they apparently had some kind of questions on the survey. But he had his survey, and that survey said he owned these 6 acres. Well, Bill, being the friendly kind of guy that he is, as we all know him to be, this fellow that sold him the land asked him if he would mind if he farmed that 6 acres. A little pie sort of piece that was on the side, and Bill didn't mind at all. But what Bill didn't do is get anything written on it that he had permission. And so there is a squatter's law in the state of Michigan that says if after 6 years you have occupied land, openly and in public, and nobody has contested that, you can claim ownership of it. Now this 6 acres of land didn't mean all that much to Bill. What meant more to him was that these fellas were the good old boy type deer hunters. And if you know Bill real well, you'll know that he's an animal advocate. And will compete. And that his life was a huge part of his life was in protection of animals. So these fellas were shooting deer and they were coming over in his property and they were dying, and it didn't sit well with Bill. Bill didn't have any problem with them farming, but he didn't know he was going to lose his land over it. So he ended up getting a negative, bad decision from David Swartz, judge here in Washtenaw County. And one of my big frustrations in life was, in my relationship with Bill, was he confided in me way too much. And he said a few things that I thought was very provocative about the judge, about what he ought to do. I'm not going to say it. He texted me with several other people, with the director of the Willow Run Tea Party Caucus on here, simply because Bill's passion, like me, a lot of times will get there a whole lot quicker than I do. It gets you in trouble sometimes. This time, I called Bill back and I said, Bill, you have to settle down. You cannot use those words on a judge. You can't do it. And it was very disappointing to me what the words I heard from him then. Because he knew that he had given his life in research for this country, and the judicial system in this country had failed him over a lawful and legal decision. And he was frustrated, and he left this world frustrated. That's going to be the thing I remember most about an American patriot, Bill Kaufman, is his frustration was more than he could handle. It probably had a little bit to do with exacerbating his heart condition. He even told me that. And so we've given some folks a little insight on Bill Kaufman that maybe didn't have it before. I think his work will continue on. But now I'm going to change a little bit, change up, and I'm going to talk about the history of our caucus a little bit, and then later on we'll talk about the future. About 15 years ago, I was remembering the assistant pastor that I had as a young man when I married my wife, and this fellow was living in a house over here off Gill Street. And I respected this pastor a whole lot, and I got a chance to move in next to him. And so we made a decision to go ahead and rent the house right next door to this fellow that we thought we were going to be neighbors for a very long time and be very happy. Well, it wasn't 2 days after we moved in to where we had brand new neighbors. And Kathy's out here and Dan's over there occupied by the cake. But my brand new neighbors, I mean, they were, if I opened my door and they would open their door, we would have to say hi because we're face to face. So Dan and Kathy moved in just about the same time we moved in. And I didn't get to have Pastor Bostwick as my neighbor anymore, and I got Dan Benefield. So we had a lot of good fun. We raised our families from those houses and had a lot of good times. But the thing that I want to say most about what I know about Dan is, you know what? Dan Benefield and Kathy too are average people. And I've come to understand something about average people. That's where our strength is. Because this country and those people who were in chains in the belly of that English warship, who coined Francis Scott Key's words to our national anthem, "Oh, say can you see, is the flag still there?" They fell in favor of that flag. And you know what? They were average people who rose to the occasion. And so when I say Dan Benefield is an average sort of guy, it doesn't mean that average people can't do great things. And through the years, and Dan's association with me personally, and then through the caucus, when Dan found out that we were meeting here, 2 blocks from his house, he wanted to get involved, and boy did he ever. We could be here a lot longer tonight if we wanted to tell you some of the successes that we have had in the past with this caucus, led by the co-directorship of Dan Benefield. I think the most notable thing that you should probably understand is this caucus has been effective enough in the past to have been the reason that that bridge to Canada was not built by the governor. Okay, so I'm an average guy too. I like to call myself a drywall guy. But you don't rise by stepping on people. If you rise, you are elevated by others. And that's a classic remembrance that I will have of Dan Benefield. This caucus elevated Dan and I thank you for the effect and influence that we've had over the 7 years, to a point to where Lansing would hear us. And we got to go speak for the Willow Run Tea Party caucus on the issue of the bridge. And we will not get credit, some will give us blame, but we will not get credit for that bridge not having been built yet. And you noticed, even though they said they won, it's not built yet. There's a reason it's not built yet. Because from the very beginning of this caucus, even though the Tea Party is supposed to stand for taxed enough already, I have never really bought that as the reason that although it's true, I'm a constitutional conservative, Christian first. And so if you're a Christian constitutional Republican conservative who happens to be a Republican, then you're going to put your priorities in that order. So my Christianity is never going to be questioned. But I'm a constitutionalist first. So when I heard that a governor wanted to negotiate a new treaty with a leader of another country, I started reading up. in the Constitution, and I come to find out that treaties have to be ratified by 2/3 majority of the Senate. This has taken me into a whole lot of areas, folks, but this was a good one. Governor cannot negotiate with the leader of another country on an international crossing. Apart from the fact that Matty Maroon had a treaty from 1921 on that bridge, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I want to tell you that Dan Benefield's effectiveness, along with his leadership and your influence on me and allowing me to lead, to go represent you, you need to be proud. Because they still haven't gotten that bridge built. We've had an awful lot of other successes, but that's a constitutional issue. I differed with Governor Snyder on it. Got a call one day, sitting right here. This is my morning office. I do my paperwork at the diner every morning. So one morning, I got a call from Governor Snyder's office. He wanted me to come up to his office and have a conversation with me about the bridge. What he really wanted was to try and coax me into supporting his position on the bridge. But what he didn't realize was that I viewed it as a constitutional infraction. And so what he heard from me, he didn't like. Because that was at the time when he was running for his second term, I believe I'm right on this, and he had an advertisement where he put on Superman cape outfit and a cape that was flowing in the wind. And I saw this in Indianapolis, by the way, at my daughter's house. And I'm looking at this and I said, why am I seeing this in Indianapolis? He must have some national intentions later on or something. But anyway, so I didn't like it so much. And so when I got back, he makes this phone call, wants me to come up and talk to him about the bridge. And so that was still burnt into my mind. And so what I said to Governor Snyder, eyeball to eyeball, I said, since you invoked the Superman image by putting a cape and a suit on that belongs to Superman, I'm going to invoke a statement to you. It's truth, justice, and the American way. You're not telling the truth on the bridge. Said it to him. And Matty Maroon is not getting justice if it is that you are able to do this. And if you allow, here's the key point, and this is where Professor Kaufman's influence had a lot to do with that bridge not being built. If you allow Chinese labor and China steel to come in and build that bridge, that is not the American way. And I said, for that reason, I will never support an unconstitutional treaty between a state and a government. They didn't think they needed that kind of approval from the federal U.S. Senate. The Constitution says they do, but so he had this plan. He was going to try to get the Michigan House and the Michigan Senate to approve it, and he would just sign it, and then they could take the money from the highways and build a bridge. They were going to do that. See, Jennifer Granholm was going to do it a couple years previous, but she was going to build it on a treaty that already existed with Matty Maroon. That's why you go up there now at the Ambassador Bridge, you see those ramps that are already there. Abandoned, by the way, because they want to build it 2 miles down. Because I think they're going to build a casino there at the old train station. A little bit of information there, that I think that's going to happen. And I think the Canadian casino people didn't want that crossing embellished there that was going to be a boon for that casino. Anyway, Dan Benefield and I, this is the part I mean to get to, went to the Senate committee hearing. Now in committee, if it doesn't come out of committee, it can't go to the floor and be voted on. And it's a dead issue. So it was a very close vote. It was going to come out. And because of Bill Bigler, and because of the precinct delegate status in this caucus, and because of the influence that we had in Lansing, Dan Benefield and I were able to go speak and testify before that Senate committee. There were 2 votes there that were very vulnerable in the primary. And our message to them was that if you vote in favor of this coming out of committee, we're going to primary you. Now those simple words right there, I mean, we did, Dan, what was it, about an hour between you and I both, maybe testifying in that committee? But those few words right there did it. That's all that was necessary, because, you know why? The influence that we had. In convention, we had influence, and we had enough influence where the phone calls could have primaried those 2 people. And they voted against letting it come down to the floor. So the bridge could not get done on a state level. That would have been unconstitutional anyway, and would have been challenged by the Man in the Room folks. I just talked to Mickey Blatchfield not more than a few months ago, and he came over, he patted me on the back, and he said, Dennis, because I asked him first, we shook hands, patted me on the back, and I said, yeah, that bridge still isn't built, is it? And he looked at me and he smiled, and he said, yes, Dennis, it's not built, and it's on the issue that you brought up. It's a constitutional issue. It has nothing to do with whether or not it was a good thing to do. Just simply a constitutional issue. So the influence that Dan and I were able to bring to Lansing carried the day on a constitutional issue, and that's what the Tea Party needs to be all about. For the most part, it is across the country.
Who were
So-
those 2 legislatures?
Won't tell you.
Why not?
I forgot. see, they're not
In our area, right?
They're not even. No, they don't have to be in your area.
No.
No, they don't have to be in my area. We would have mounted an effort in their district to primary them, and they knew it would get done. We had done it before. Bill Bickler is very effective. Okay, and I'll give him every credit in the world. At that time, he was a very intricate part of this caucus, and so he was able to give Dan and I, in this caucus, was able to give Dan and I a good standing in Lansing, and I think we used it in a positive way. So, as Dan prepares to come up and say a few words, I think there's nobody here that has been here very long that doesn't understand the mildness and the meekness of a giant in stature. Now, Dan's not so tall, he's not so much of a giant, not all that good looking, but he's a giant when it comes to patriotism and desire to serve his country. And Dan's told me they're going to be moving to Indianapolis. He's told me that when he gets down there and gets settled, he wants to start up another Tea Party down in Indianapolis. And I'm sure he will, and we'll hear good things. Dan, come up and give us a few words. Dan Benefield.
Well, thank you so much. I've been told on a couple of occasions that I've got a face made for radio, and I still haven't figured out what that means, but Dennis did something that God won't do. Scripture says God won't share his glory with any man. But Dennis Moores, the founder and director of the Willow and Tea Party, just stood here for a number of minutes and shared his glory with me. But I have to tell you, we were in Lansing, and I was in that committee meeting, and I got to speak. But after the meeting was over, I was informed that I kind of tried the patience of the committee a little bit, because I really kind of wandered off the subject. Right here is not only a leader of the Willow Run Tea Party caucus, folks, but he was one of the original leaders of the Tea Party in the state of Michigan. And I had the great pleasure since 2009 of not only being his neighbor for a while, and then he moved. I don't think we had too many wild late night parties that chased him away, but nothing I'll admit to anyway. But Dennis has been the moving force in the state of Michigan and in this country in the Tea Party movement. And I've told the story many times how I heard about him and the caucus, came over here, got involved, and these past few years have been hallmark years in my life. I wouldn't change them for anything. And I wouldn't change the opportunity to be with you folks and see the work that you have done. And I could point out, and please don't be offended, but I want to point out one person in this room that went above and beyond the call of duty. Many years ago when I was running for county commissioner, I had a few people stand by me and go knock on doors, and one day Tim King called me up and said, when can we go? And he wanted to go out. And if you know anything about Tim's health problems, you know that he can't be on his feet and walk too much. But Tim is a good friend. And you ought to appreciate, Dennis was talking about common people. That's all I am. That's all I am. The common people can do great things. And Tim stepped up, and I'm sure he suffered for a number of days afterwards from walking the streets over on the other side of 94, down there in Ypsilanti, knocking on doors. So he did as much as he could. And he said, I have to go sit down, I can't do any more. And I said, Tim, you go home and rest. You've done too much already. But these are the kind of people that step up and try to do the best they can. You can't ask for more than that. You just can't. But I'm going to tell you, people have stepped up from 2009 when I became a part of this, for America, for the Constitution, and yes, for Dennis Moore. And Dennis, because of your character, and we've got a tough situation to work our way through, but it's going to take good, solid leadership to get us where we need to go. And as I was just thinking, and I'll sit down, but I was just thinking about the years and the years and the years of you folks coming out every Friday night. What a joy it is to look into your faces and know that you've been supporting the Willow Tea Party caucus. And that's why we keep coming back. And that's why America is still free. Because the Tea Party has had a great influence in this country. And I've been so humbled and yet so proud to be a part of such a great movement, work with such great people. And I will say just a word about Dr. Kaufman. I met him down at Monroe when Rob Steele debated John Dingle and saw him carrying the signs. That's the way I always remember meeting Dr. Kaufman. He was a stand-up guy. And he would stand for what he believes. And whether he's right or wrong, he's wrong on some things, he's right on a whole lot of things. He's a brilliant man. Brilliant man. It was my privilege to work with him in his campaign. And I just count those years precious of knowing him. I sat a number of occasions and talked to him about his spiritual condition. And I never could nail him down. I don't know where he is. But I can tell you that we're honored, and we're honored by people like Doug Smith, and people like Joe, and many of you who give of yourselves day after day, week after week, whether it's in the Republican Party, the Conservative movement, or the Tea Party, whatever it is. Thank you. And thank you for this. Thank you for allowing me to be able to work with you over these years. And I'll thank my dear wife, who put up with me being gone on Friday nights, being gone on the road, going to campaigns, going to state conventions and so forth, being a precinct delegate, twice elected precinct. That's a great place to be. You get a vote in the state convention. You're a precinct delegate. It's great. If you're not a precinct delegate, become one. Because you have a direct vote, you have a say. And who the nominees you're going to be. So it's a great opportunity. So get to work. The battle is still raging and it's ahead of us. So thank you, Willow Tea Party Caucus. Thank you, Dennis Mayor. Let's give Dennis
Ken's got a question.
Can we have Dan or you read this? Because you guys need to share in the joy of putting this together. Because without you guys, we wouldn't have had this. From the Bureau of Pure Michigan, Bureau of Tourism.
I'll let you read it, Andrew. So I'm going to set it up. Okay, so for a few years back, when the Willow Run Bomber plant, when we realized that they were going to tear it down, we have a lot of history here because on a good day you can see their stacks from there. They're in our backyard, and so they were before they were torn down. And so I had the notion, there was a time, folks, I'm going to share this with you, because grown men don't often admit to crying.
Thank you.
But there was a time when I went over into the empty parking lot of the Willow Run Bomber plant. And with the passion and the history that I have toward those who have fallen in favor of my liberties, that flag, it came over me one time when I was looking at the structure of that plant before they began to tear it down. And I got on my knees, honestly, and I prayed that God would salvage that plant. And God knows more than I do, and He didn't choose to salvage that plant. But I cried over it. I cried, I thought about all of the men and women, my own mother-in-law, who worked with Rosie the Riveters over there, and all the people who sacrificed, who got into those B-24 bombers when they came off of the line and flew them off to be stocked with the arsenal that they had to carry into war. So I thought it fitting, and Tim and I got together on this, and Tim and Joe have done an awful lot of work. Tim has gone all across the state to try to, we're trying to get in Lansing a bill that would support the spending of, in the amount of probably $500,000 minimum, designated to a memory of the Willow Run Bombing plant. And Brenda Stumbo has said the township will donate the land, and they will have to create an entity that can receive the money once we get co-sponsor of a bill and get it passed. We think we can get that done. But this is one of the, this is Pure Michigan. Is that what this is? And so Dan's going to read this to you, and then Tim's got what?
I've got Mackinac City,
how many
Traverse.
signatures? You've got
Oh,
thousands.
hundreds and hundreds and hundreds.
Okay, so here's Dan's going to read this. From Pure Michigan.
Yeah, Pure Michigan, this is the Sault Ste. Marie Convention and Visitors Bureau. June 2nd, 2016, to Mr. Timothy King. The purpose of this letter is to offer the full support of the Sault Ste. Marie Convention and Visitors Bureau towards constructing and maintaining a memorial honoring the Willow Run Bomber plant in Ypsilanti, Michigan. At the peak of its production during World War II, the Willow Run plant employed 42,000 workers. Willow Run produced more aircraft every month on its mile-long assembly line than Imperial Japan did in a year, earning it and the area surrounding southeast Michigan worldwide fame as the center of America's arsenal of democracy. We would urge the governor and legislature of Michigan and all other interested parties to support and fund a memorial dedicated to the contributions of the historic Willow Run Bomber plant. We fully support your ongoing efforts and applaud the contributions made by individuals and organizations devoted to this historic project. Sincerely, Linda Kate, Holt, Executive Director. So, Tim deserves a little round of applause for the work that he's done.
I might add also the Mackinac Bridge Authority Director. This is his name. I forgot his first name.
Mr. Sweeney.
But he had a meeting this week, and they're on board. And what's bigger than the Big Mac?
Yeah. Okay, folks, so Kathy's going to leave now. She's got so much work to do. She's got some family in that are helping her pack. So, you know, as Kathy leaves, why don't we all give her a big hand for her participation. Thank you so much, Kathy, for what you've done with us. So, here's the thing I've learned in life. Having achieved the age of 60-something. I'm old enough to have learned that nothing stays the same forever. And not all changes are bad. And so what I think a difficult thing for me to share with you tonight, this has been a tough week. A friend of our caucus lost his grandson yesterday. And that's been weighing pretty heavily on me. It's a private issue, so I'm not going to share with you, but I will just tell you that bad things happen to good people. But as far as the direction of this caucus goes, which is another heart pull on my heart, it's what I'm trying to associate with. It's been a pretty tough week. I've come to a decision that I need to step back. I'm not stepping out. I'm stepping back.
All right, you guys have a good night.
I will no longer be your director. I will be among you, sitting where you are, challenging the person that's going to be speaking. I'm an integral part of this caucus. I just do not think at this point that I can continue, and I will tell you why. Because it is my mission now to do something that I don't think is quite understood by most of the Tea Party people across the country, and maybe some of our own folks here. I am deplorably against Donald Trump. It's not something that I'm going to be able to convince you of. It's not something that I want to continue to stand before you in opposition of somebody who you believe is the answer to our country's problems. And what I got to share with you folks is it's not, I like the things he's saying mostly. Let's put that qualifier on there, mostly. It's not what he's saying, it's who he is that I don't believe in. It's a matter of confidence, folks. I'm going to share with you some things that I believe I know. And these are going to be the reason that you shouldn't have me here every Friday night, because if you know me, and I think you do, you know I'm going to say what I think. I haven't ever, it's not structured very well, I've never not done that. I will have always told you what I think. Sometimes it gets me in trouble, got me in trouble with the governor. But I'll always, and when I'm inhibited or intimidated to say what I think for the fear of hurting my friends' feelings, or even making enemies out of people I really respect, then I think it might be time to take a new direction in the caucus. Now, I'm not sure where it goes, but I'm going to share with you a couple of things.
It's the big sky.
First of all, I've had a discussion, and I'll get into the detail of what my purpose is in just a minute. Just got a text from Mike McKevicus. He's the sound guy who always sets up for us. He's not with us today. He's traveling out to Utah on his motorcycle, his Harley. So I told him, I said, Mike, you have to text me twice a week or I'm calling state police out there, okay? And so I just got a text from him. That's what that text was you heard. And he's doing okay, but it's a very sad reason that Mike's going out there. We still have the camera rolling?
If you have some, we do. Okay. Would you like what kind of
Honesty in the director who stands before you, and I will do that. So my stepping aside is not stepping back. I'm sort of stepping back a little bit to let the caucus your will to step forward. Mike McKevicus has agreed to become the interim director. But my reasons for what I'm doing is the pedophile ring that Jeffrey Epstein has been adjudicated and imprisoned over. Now, how can that have anything to do with Donald Trump? I'm not making accusations here, I have suspicions. But I'm going to tell you what I know for a fact. Jeffrey Epstein had underage children sex parties with high-profile and even elected officials and high-profile men, and I suppose women, across the country, across the world. And he would do this to compromise these people who had leverage with a vote or even maybe a president.
How's that going on for you back there?
And so these accusations have gone directly at Bill Clinton,
Anymore?
but not by Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump is hitting Bill Clinton with every single volley that he has. I mean, he's just not afraid to talk about stains on blue dresses. He's not afraid to talk about all of the affairs that Bill Clinton has. But with the history of Jeffrey Epstein, with Bill Clinton having been on that plane and on that sex fantasy island 21 times, this is not guesswork. He flew on Jeffrey Epstein's plane, which was dubbed by the media the Lolita Express. I guess there's a movie made called Lolita. It was about underage victims. And folks, I got to tell you, my heart broke on this to the point of tears. I bawled when I wrote the message that told the people who were receiving that message that I would lay down any title, any position to expose the abject evil of this pedophile ring that pervades this country. It does. I'm not saying that Jeffrey Epstein, nor Donald Trump, nor Bill Clinton had anything to do with John Benet Ramsey. But I will tell you that the pedophile ring that they are not exposing did have everything to do with the death of John Benet Ramsey. And I was studying it way back then with a heartbreak of a father. And I let it go for a very long time, figuring nothing could be done. I knew that they were there. I just didn't know that there was a character like Jeffrey Epstein who was giving parties for presidents and who was compromising high-profile people and getting them to do his bidding or the bidding of the Mossad. That's the Israel CIA. Okay, now my interest is piqued very highly here, folks. I am more motivated than I've ever been, and you have seen me motivated. But now I'm more motivated than I've ever been to expose the underbelly of what I believe is going on. My problem with Donald Trump is not that I can accuse him of this, but even Donald Trump has had an association he will not admit to with Jeffrey Epstein. He's been to the parties. He's been on the plane. But here's my problem with our nominee, presumptive. He is so willing to bring this out, not this, but the sexual escapades of Bill Clinton. He's so willing to talk about anything, to throw any mud on the wall, caring not if it's true or if it sticks. Marco Rubio? Really? He's not even afraid to call out a man. I'm just too embarrassed to say what they talked about. We all know it. Donald Trump wasn't too intimidated to make accusation about a man's manhood. I will say it, because I am that angry about why he will not call Bill Clinton out on the Jeffrey Epstein sex parties with 12 and 13-year-old children. Bill Clinton needs to be called out on that. Say that it's all false. I don't know. I think it's true. Why isn't Donald Trump talking about Bill Clinton's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein? I can't get beyond it, folks. I cannot get beyond it. Here's another reason why. There are two women right now, and I won't bore you with, I didn't bring the video, have depositions, filed lawsuit cases, what say that Donald Trump raped them when they were 12 and 13 years old, respectively, the two women. Donald Trump's lawyers have said, well, This is just political, you know. What they said was this woman lived in a house, her address is a foreclosed house, and the person's dead that owned it. Okay, now that's supposed to mean to me that this woman who filed this in her own name, at the risk of perjury, going to jail, by the way, this wasn't filed by a lawyer, filed by an individual who can't, and listen, they know where this woman is, the legal apparatus. Just because Donald Trump doesn't know where she is, and Donald Trump's lawyers doesn't know where she is, and can't be found, and the number's been changed, doesn't mean this woman isn't real. I'm only saying that that's what they're saying. She lived in a house with elderly people that they couldn't pay their bills, and their house foreclosed, and they ended up dying. But that doesn't mean she didn't live there, folks. But their lawyers are saying this woman didn't live there. I'm just telling you some of the apparatus surrounding Donald Trump and these denials. I'm not comfortable with the denials. So this is the reason that I will step aside and proclaim the thing that I'm saying that I suspect about Donald Trump.
Why hasn't the media picked up on this?
Best question of the night. Get into it.
Don't tell me there was already the gold one.
Why did the media pick up on... You know, we had Herman Cain there twice. Sat back there. I was the proudest thing in the world. I was proud. I was proud that Herman Cain came to this caucus, to this building. We had Sarah Palin, but she didn't come here. We had 4,000 people. We had to go over to the Belleville Park. But Herman Cain, while he was here, he was leading the polls nationally. Right? Everybody knows I'm right? While he was here. There were 2 accusations from some women out in California, 2 women, who worked with the Restaurant Association out there. Folks, these were accusations. Try to follow me closely on this, because now you're going to find out why I have to do what I have to do. These were only accusations. The news media jumped. And I mean, they jumped on those accusations. There was no lawsuits filed on these women. These women didn't file any lawsuits. Simple accusations. They beat Donald Trump up over it, and it became the reason that he was brought down. Joe, you just asked the best question of the week. Would you bring that water right here? I'm talking too much. You get dry. Thank you. Why doesn't the media jump on this? So, Joe, I'm asking you, why don't they jump on it? They hate Donald Trump, right? They're wanting to get Hillary elected, right? So you think it might be a matter of timing? Do you? I do. I suspect that the reason that Donald Trump won't mention it, because one finger pointing is 3 fingers back to Bill Clinton. Donald Trump won't get the subject matter out in the open with accusing Bill Clinton of it, because it's just something I think they've agreed to be quiet on. Sorry, I believe it. I believe that they've got a conspiracy assignments on the issue. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's the reason that I'm going to step aside, because if you don't agree with me, I don't want to be standing in front of you all the time telling you what I think. It's soon enough we're going to find out. But the media is not jumping all over this. And you knew it would be like a bum on a bologna sandwich if there wasn't a conspiracy of silence in order to bring this out after he's locked in convention. So the question you asked, Joe, I believe, is they won't bring it out until Donald Trump is locked in and the Republican Party can't do anything about their nominee. I honestly believe the 12th Amendment is going to be invoked in this election. And I believe by the time the election comes around that we will, America, this is going to get so salacious, so evil, that America will be begging, pleading, and praying that Mitt Romney can bail us out. And I'm going to tell you how that I believe he can, and I'm going to tell you how I think it plays out. And I know we've had this discussion before. Mitt Romney lost 2 elections. Yes, he did. Mitt Romney lost 2 elections because the evangelicals sat at home, wouldn't vote for a Mormon. So we got the second term of Barack Obama because he wasn't pastor enough for us, Mitt Romney. Now, we don't elect pastors, we elect presidents, and there's a First Amendment to protect me from the man's faith. I'm protected kind of a little bit from Barack Obama's Islamic faith by the First Amendment. I'm sorry, I just had to go there. So here's the way I think this plays out. And this is the reason that the 15th is significant to my last directorship of the Willow Run Tea Party caucus until it becomes resolved. And the choice is the caucuses. I have officially resigned as of August 15th. August 15th is significant because it's the last filing date of Utah for anyone who wants to run for president. So that's after the Democrat convention. That's after, I think, that the Democrat Party loses confidence in Hillary Clinton because of James Comey, who's an honorable guy, by the way. The FBI, maybe, are getting too close to her. I think the party pulls in convention, Joe Biden. I think it happened. Now, oh, I'm glad that Alan's laughing. I talk and I thought he was laughing.
He's choking it out.
Okay, so we will have fun with good old Joe. Okay, so I believe it. And you're wrong. But Hillary Clinton has to have a protection of the White House or she goes to jail for a very long time. But I believe that she will die. I believe that before she gets to deposition about Benghazi, that they will kill Hillary Clinton because she knows where the bodies are buried. I don't know if she's laughing at me or she's laughing at something she said. I believe Hillary Clinton has to have protection of the executive privilege. Bill Clinton didn't have to answer questions in deposition because he had executive privilege. Remember that about Monica Lewinsky? They couldn't pursue him criminally. So I believe what you're going to see, get ready, this is humorous too, you're going to laugh. I believe you're going to see Joe Biden coming in, and the deal has been cut already because the Democrat Party is going to abandon Hillary. They have to. He will choose her as his vice presidential running mate. That's what I think. This entitles her, listen to this carefully, whether you agree with me or not, please, out of respect for me, understand what it is I'm saying. This entitles her to be the choice of the Senate under the 12th Amendment. Understand this. Because I believe we lose the Senate. And in the 12th Amendment, you have to understand, you don't have to, but please try to, that when nobody gets 270 electors, the language of the 12th Amendment is that the top 3 elector getters, from the top 3, the House chooses immediately, and that word immediately is very important. That's immediately. That's when nobody achieves 270. Paul Ryan, Mitt Romney's running mate, let's throw that in, will oversee a process by which the House chooses 1 vote per delegation. From the top 3 electoral getters, that means there will be a Republican president. Because we have those numbers in the delegations across the states.
And he has endorsed Trump, by the way.
And he hasn't. Well, he just said he would vote for Trump. The endorsement was intrepid at the very least. And he just jumped all over him for what he did with that Mexican judge. He's not a Mexican judge. He has Hispanic history, but he was born in America. Anyway, I understand the quote Mexican judge hates Donald Trump. And Donald Trump just thinks that, he can attack anybody with that. It may have been a mistake, but that's apart from the fact that what I think is going to happen, the word immediately is not used in the commission of the Senate to choose the vice president. And from the top 2 elector getters of a separate ballot of the vice president is chosen by the Senate. Now, the Senate can wait, because it doesn't say immediately, until the new Senate is established. And the Democrats will control and I believe you're going to have Hillary Clinton, laugh, get ready, applaud, laugh, as your vice president. It is what I term to be a nightmare on Elm Street. I believe the electoral, we'll go for questions and answers in just a minute. Let me get my scenario out because I believe it, and I don't want you to have to hear it from me. Listen, the pedophile issue is the reason this has to be talked about. I have become very hopeful now that the 12th Amendment will rescue this country. Okay, because remember I said that the 15th is the last date that a person can file in Utah? If Mitt Romney happens to file before the 15th, Mitt Romney will win 6 electors in Utah. Does anybody doubt that? Let's say that if he files, I'll put it together like this. If he does file, he may not, but I think he will. If he does file, he will win those electors. And the Constitution doesn't say you have to be part of a party. The 12th Amendment only says the top 3 elector getters. So if Mitt Romney gets 6 electors, and believe me, this fits into the philosophy that the Republicans want third party, fourth party, and fifth party people to run. They're getting this French fellow. Have you heard about him? They're trying to bolster him up to run third party. Well, he doesn't have a snowball's chance. Neither did Ross Perot. Ross Perot got 19%. But what I think what they're manipulating here, and it is manipulation, and I'm cheering for it now, folks. That's why I can't stand in front of you and without telling you what I think. I have got to step aside once this scenario is out. And I'm praying for this scenario to happen. So, let me think of where I was. With Mitt Romney gaining 6 electors, it qualifies him to be one of the top 3 electoral getters because they're manipulating in all the other races with these French third party, fourth party, fifth party. You're going to have multiple parties running. And I think they can guarantee no one gets 270 electors. I believe they believe that. That's why. See, Billy Crystal's not a stupid person. Do you know who knows who Billy Crystal is? He's head of the Conservatives. He's not stupid. In my mind, for him to be calling what he's calling for a third party, this French fellow, I have never heard of him before. There is no way that Billy Crystal believes that this fellow could win a third party run. At least with Ross Perot, we heard of him. I even voted for him. I was behind him. Sorely disappointed with what I found out to be the truth about Ross Perot. He benefited more by NAFTA than anybody in the history of NAFTA. That being another story. We have all of these third party, fourth party runs and manipulation that will guarantee nobody gets 270 electors. Do you folks realize that before, and I'm going to be cautious in using it, but I'm going to say it before the black fellow ran, because it was a glass ceiling that all of America wanted. And even I, apart from, I didn't like his politics, but even I felt good that America, through all the history of our racism, and we were, 60 years in this country's history, we made illegal the institution of slavery. After only 60 years. But that didn't make racism illegal. So we've endured racism. I felt a little good about a black president being elected, but I felt so bad about the politics that surrounded him. So, but what I wanted to call to your attention is before the black fellow entered the race to absolutely eviscerate the opponents, which he did.
That's what I'm saying though, I need next Friday before.
In the election of Gore versus Bush, do you folks realize how close that election was to no one getting 270 electors? If 2 electors had changed their mind about voting for Bush, and this is the time when they had the Florida fiasco, but this is not the Florida fiasco. If 2 electors had changed, maybe New Hampshire, who splits their electors, I believe, maybe 2 of their electors had gone for Al Gore, then no one would have gotten 270 electors. It would have thrown it into the House of Representatives. I'm giving you a little bit of a history lesson here. I've studied it carefully. Guess who would have been the president then under the 12th Amendment? Who was controlling the House then?
Nancy Pelosi.
Absolutely. I don't know if it was Nancy or not, but it was the Democrats. Democrats would have chosen in the 12th Amendment Al Gore as your president. This is how relevant the 12th Amendment is, and I'm telling you, it has happened before. This is not new. It didn't happen then. It was close then. This is the first election that we're going to have after we've digested the wonderfulness of the fact that white America could vote for a black fellow. After that has been digested, this is the first election that we have. And the electoral system is going to be so close. I do not believe, and I think Billy Crystal and the 3rd, 4th, and 5th parties that they're running are manipulated to bring about a 12th Amendment presidency. I'm laying a lot on my suspicions here, folks. And I will not, just a few more minutes, Tim, I know, and I want to answer your questions. I believe this perspective I have on Donald Trump. At the very least, if he's not participating in this pedophilia ring, he should be calling it out. He should be calling it out because Jeffrey Epstein is there. Bill Clinton, by the way, and Donald Trump's not using this against Bill Clinton and Hillary. Hillary enabled this behavior. He's saying it about the other women. Why isn't he saying it about the pedophiles and the young women? Bill Clinton lobbied for Jeffrey Epstein to get only 14 months in prison for sexually exploiting 12 and 13-year-old girls. And the sentence was so light, this is history, I'm not exaggerating, that 16 hours out of the day he was, I can't believe it, he was released on work release program. And he was housed in an isolated wing of prison. He didn't have to face the men who were molested as they were children, because child molesters don't do too well in prison. Because a lot of the men who are in prison went a bad way in life because of their history with being raped, sometimes by their own parents. So child molesters do not do well. So Epstein was in an isolated wing. He only had to be there 8 hours out of the night. 16 hours he was able to do his business. He's a billionaire who buys politicians. Nobody can say where he got his money from. Donald Trump has not my confidence because he will not call out Bill Clinton on his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. I suspect, my suspicion is, the reason is when one finger points, three are pointing back. I believe they have a conspiracy of silence between them to keep it quiet. And the media will do this to Donald Trump without they think hurting Hillary. But this whole election, I think the House will choose Mitt Romney as our president. It will be a convulsion. I believe it. I understand you're saying. And the Senate will choose Hillary Clinton. It'll be the first time that has happened, but not the first time that the 12th Amendment has happened. And it's very tedious for a Republican president to have a Democrat vice president, especially one who's responsible for graves in a lot of places, which I believe. Okay, so as I get ready to turn over to questions, I'll try to answer them as best I can. I have enough integrity about me to not want to stand in front of you every Friday night. Our attendance has been down, so I decided that once a month will be good. But I need to step aside, let Mike take it as interim director, let the caucus find out where you want to be on this, and let history take place. And then we will know. And we will see. I'm not leaving the caucus. I'll be here just like Tim does, hassling the speaker. That's good stuff, though, by the way. I love it. Tim, go ahead and hassle me.
I had a question about...
hang on, Tim.
With the U.S. Senate being controlled by the Republican Party, and Mitch McConnell is the leader, or the majority leader, you still have Marco Rubio there, and you still have Ted Cruz, and you could you possibly have a reconciliation clause of 51 votes to say, no, we're not going to pick Hillary, we're going to pick we're gonna pick Kasich, or we're gonna pick,
It has to be one of two that ran for vice president.
that ran for vice president.
Has to be one of two, the two top electoral getters that ran for vice president.
Okay,
So whoever, Newt Gingrich and Hillary, I think.
so what if they pick a Republican? And Hillary goes to prison and wears
And
orange?
that's the very reason I say they won't, because even some of them will go to prison. I think Benghazi is that bad, folks.
They're protecting her then.
They're protecting her.
Republicans and Democrats are
That's
protecting her.
protecting themselves. You remember about a few years back, when Benghazi was really new to our minds, I said that there's three most important things in this country that motivate me and should motivate the country. The first one's Benghazi, and the second one is Benghazi, and the third one is Benghazi. There is no more important thing politically, other than faithfully, our country should turn back to God, but politically, there is no more important thing than Benghazi. And Hillary Clinton, folks, knows literally where the bodies are buried. How many here know that Mike Rogers, a Republican chair of the House Intelligence Committee, right? Intelligence, I think. That's a pretty... He resigned. Why? I don't know, but I got a suspicion. His wife was the CEO of the corporation that contracted the security in Benghazi. The ones who dropped their guns and went over to the other side and helped kill our people. Benghazi, Benghazi, Benghazi. How does this play in with my refusal to accept Donald Trump? It's not being talked about. I believe the conspiracy of silence has entered into the mindset of all people in this election process except one, Mitt Romney. I'm sorry, it's what I believe. Let me tell you something else. Everybody says, well, he was elected, he just quit. He quit. He did. I mean, he was winning, and he just quit. Well, I'll tell you a little insight on that. It has a little bit to do with Mike McCavickers. Because I told Mike this just 2 days ago, and it brought him to tears. Mike literally started crying when I conveyed this to him. Mitt Romney was invited to attend the ceremony of the cremation of care at the Burning Owl out in the Bohemian Grove. It takes place every year. A lot of Republicans, some Democrats go there. A lot of world leaders go there. I don't know what they expect to gain from it, but I guess they need to cremate their care because you can't afford to care if you're going to kill a lot of people somewhere. But anyway, Mitt Romney and all presidents, even Ronald Reagan, went. All the Bushes did. But that doesn't mean they were members. Ronald Reagan went, and he refused to do their bidding. Guess what happened to Ronald Reagan? John Hinckley?
Hinckley was CIA too.
Just saying. Mitt Romney, a few weeks before his reversal, so to speak, and successes, he refused to attend the ceremony of the cremation of care. And Mike, I was sharing with Mike McCavickers about this, and I said, well, Mike's question was, well, why would that make him resign? Well, Mike, this is something very personal to you, and I'm going to say this to you. They threatened his family. Because they knew he wouldn't be their guy. They knew that the integrity of Mitt Romney, they couldn't put their clutches in. They knew he wasn't a child molester. He was a Mormon sheriff. He's not my pastor. He's not my faith. But he's an honorable, respectable person. And they couldn't put their clutches in him and they threatened his family. Well, at that time, Mitt Romney's family was very exposed. He couldn't get them protection. This is what I think, folks. And I've been given some backup to it, and I can't share it with you. I'll share one thing with you about it. I was told not to talk about this, because the more people that find out about it, the less likely it is to happen. And I don't believe that's so. I believe that when this plays out to the mindset of the American people, and they understand a few things, like I said before, I think we will be begging Mitt Romney to get into the race in Utah. Because Mitt Romney winning this way doesn't have to run the gauntlet. doesn't have to have his family at risk. His family can't be protected. Mitt Romney, I believe, folks, is an American patriot that wants only the best for this country. Yes, he couldn't get elected. But it was because of the likes of Jeffrey Epstein who had his clutches into people who could demand what they did. Rick Santorum was a good guy. But did you know something? He was Catholic. Really? So these folks who tell me that, well, we can't vote for Romney because he's a Mormon. I asked him, I said, does that mean you can't vote for a guy because he's Catholic? And I said, just how far you want to take this? What about Episcopalian? Isn't Donald Trump Episcopalian? Do we vote for him based on what, do we only vote for Baptists now? That's ludicrous for evangelicals to stay home because of Mitt Romney's faith. But Mitt Romney protected his family first. I believe with everything in my heart that his family was threatened and he had to back out. Now, with this scenario, his family can be protected. He doesn't have to get one single vote in the general electorate. Oh, Mr. Valancourt. Glad to see you. I bet it's glad to be seen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway.
Praise the Lord for successes in its battle with cancer. He's had some successes. Joe, I have a question. Let me finish this thought first. Mitt Romney doesn't have to answer the first election call. The first thing that will happen, only in the state of Utah. And there won't be another competition. He will not have to campaign. He has to do a sign his name. He wins. Utah is solidly Mormon, and they don't like Donald Trump. And they will not vote for Hillary. Mitt Romney owns Utah if he wants to register by the 15th of August. And I'm praying with tears in my knees on the asphalt of the Willow Bomber plant if I have to, that Mitt Romney will get in the race and save this country from the fate I believe that we're going to have. And so he will choose this route. People say, well, why didn't he run? There's a reason. This way he doesn't have to face an electorate who will not elect him because he's Mormon. It would happen again. Believe me, I've had the questions. Joe, go ahead.
And Romney has made the statement that there is no appetite for him to run, at least as a third party.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right, Dennis. I believe he is a very honorable and a God-fearing man. But if this scenario plays out the way you're foretelling it, if it's not going to be the end of the Democratic Party, I believe it will be the end of the Republican Party.
And you're right.
Because it will be the final nail in the coffin. And I think the majority of the country won't stand for it because it'll be just...
They can't do anything about it. You're right. Well, let me tell you, my last message I sent out, I said the phoenix will rise out of the ashes of the Republican Party. I think the Republican Party has nailed itself. There will be a new phoenix that rises out of its ashes. You remember when the Democrat-Republican Party became the Republican Party, there was the Whigs, and this exact same thing happened then. And I think we will have a new party. I don't know what it's going to be. But let me say before Doug asks this question, Donald Trump will bring compliance to the Republican platform. We know, we believe that, don't we? I believe he will. But the thing I fear is in order to do that, he'll change the platform. I believe that with all my heart. There's nobody who's going to convince me that Donald Trump's going to leave that Republican platform alone. He's going to change it quite a lot, and then he'll bring compliance to it. Go ahead, Doug.
Okay. Bill and I talked to a woman from Brighton that said that the Mormon Church had some of the same problems that the Catholic Church had in terms of covering up child molestation. And she specifically had a beef with Scott Romney because apparently the way things work in the Mormon church, I guess it's kind of like a parish, and if you move, if someone wants to move from one parish to another parish, they have to have the permission of the church leadership. And so her daughter was raped by a young man that had been, I guess, in a Detroit parish, and that Scott Romney had transferred him to the parish in Brighton, and had not told him that the reason he was being transferred was because he was accused of molesting someone in his previous parish. And so she ended up leaving him alone with her daughter, and the daughter was raped. So, it's like, I'm not sure whether mitt can be
Okay, so
can be painted with the same brush or not. But
well, okay, and that's a fair question. Todd, not here tonight, but he emailed me back and said that Joseph Smith was a child molester. He's one that discovered the tablets from Mormon Church. That may be true. May also be true about Scott Romney. But here's what I'm going to say. That is not a policy of the Mormon Church. That is a cover-up, just like the Catholic Church did not have a policy by which, thanks for coming folks, didn't have a policy by which they authorized the rape of children. Let me say this about Joseph Smith. I'll be the last one in the history of the Baptist world to defend Joseph Smith, but I will tell you some of the history I have in my own family. My grandmother was 13 years old when she was married. When she was 16, she had 2 children. And it was a hard life. A lot of negative things happened, a lot of good things happened. But without the consent of the parent, that would have been rape. Right? Now, all I'm meaning to say here, I'm not defending Joseph Smith, but what I'm meaning to say is there was a time in this country when 13 years old was a marriageable property. That doesn't mean I approve of it. Doesn't mean that I'm saying whatever the relationship, who knows if Joseph Smith got the permission of the parents. But back in that day, 13 years old was marriageable material. Because it was with my grandmother, the state of Kentucky. But it had to be with permission of the parent, of course. So at least to Todd's point, that doesn't mean that Mitt Romney is a pedophile, which is the analogy that was trying to be drawn there. And I know, Doug, you didn't mean to do that, but just because Mitt Romney's brother tried to cover this horrendous mistake, as the Catholic Church was doing with the priests, and it was all wrong. I don't know, my brother's a Catholic. I don't know of anyone who defends that. It's something that they got caught up in, and the church got caught up in trying to do what is the greater good, maybe, of seeing to it that the church continues on, but it was a mistake. And I will say about Scott Romney, if I don't know the whole situation, that doesn't mean that Mitt Romney's a pedophile. Go ahead, John.
If this scenario plays out the way you're describing, why wouldn't the Republican Party, at least in the sense of the establishment, prefer to take their chances with Donald Trump as opposed to a 12th Amendment selection of Romney, which they got to know it's going to end the party. And why would we be more prone to lose the Senate than the House when it's the House that controls the purse strings and hasn't done anything?
Hang on, let me answer the first question first and you repeat the second. Because I believe they do not think Donald Trump can beat Joe Biden. And I believe they understand this is what's going to happen. Especially with Hillary Clinton as a running mate. I think the Republican Party is very fearful of what comes out after he's locked in. I think it was why they set up every single firewall they could, and the vigilante voters, which had come from the posse, the constitutional posse, who went to vigilante voters, Donald Trump blew through every single firewall. And I don't think the Republican Party is being honest with us here. I'm angry with the party for bringing us to this point. Look at all the good candidates that were cast away by the wayside because they wanted Jeb Bush. That is the problem. The Republican Party wanted another Bush, and they cast aside Mike Huckabee. What candidates were there? And for this offense, now they're faced with this problem, and they know, I think they know, that Donald Trump cannot win, especially after he gets nominated, and I think they know these things come out. I believe it. And see, folks, out of respect for you, Joe, really, truthfully, out of respect, I will not stand in front of you convincing you of this every time I speak. But it's something so important for me to stand up against the pedophile ring that I know is out there. I know it's there, folks. I can't go into detail about some of the reasons I know it's there, but I know how the abject evil and control they have over people in Congress. It's there. And I think the party knows that when the media wants to break bad on Donald Trump for his association with Jeffrey Epstein, they will do it and tear him right out of the saddle the same way that Herman Cain was taken out. And they fear that then elects Joe Biden and another minimum 4 years of Obama policies. It's what I think. You can disagree. I'm telling you, I speak what I think. And it is the reason I have to step aside. You don't need to be hearing this if I'm wounding your hero every time I take the microphone. And I know, folks, I said that wrong, we don't have heroes. In this caucus, we believe in the frailty of man. I know this. But there is good men that you support, and some folks believe that Donald Trump is the man for the job, and I do not. And for that reason, I'm stepping aside. I will be here with you. Alan wants a question. Joe, did you have a follow-up? Alan? Thanks.
What about the Senate?
Oh yeah, he had the Senate question. Come to you, Alan.
Yeah, why are we more apt to lose the Senate than the House when it's the House that controls the purse strings? And they haven't done anything.
Because Obama has put up this Supreme Court justice that the Republican Party is falling for the trap. They're falling for the trap. They don't have a winning position on it. They have to oppose this guy, but it's going to cost them in key seats. I'm watching these key seats. Rubio had better get busy down in Florida, or we lose that seat.
And what if we don't lose the Senate?
Well, if we don't lose the Senate, then you'll have a Republican vice president. Okay? Chosen by the Senate. Okay, he'll come to you here. Alan now.
Could you expand on your statement about the connection between Epstein, is it Jeff or Joel Epstein?
Jeffrey Epstein.
Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump. Can you expand on that connection? Like, how do you know they're connected, or in what way are they connected?
There are lawsuits that have been filed by women who accuse Donald Trump of raping them when they were 12 and 13 years old. These may be absolute lies.
Women associated with Epstein, though?
Yes, because the lawsuit is with Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump. It may be absolute lies. But the point I'm making is, why? Tell me reasonably why the media isn't jumping all over this. It's there. They're not. They're keeping their animal dry. My estimation is they're going to get him once he's locked into the nomination, thinking that's going to get Hillary elected. Can I follow up?
And why they're, there is suspicion on why they're not jumping on it, but, what you're talking about is the October surprise. There's always an October surprise. That might be it.
Well, the October surprise could very well be the fact that Mitt Romney is in the race. And that you won't know until the election ends that there was not enough electors to get to 270 by either candidate. So, yeah, there could be an October surprise, but I think it will be in convention that they pull in Joe Biden. Tim personally, you go. It is 11 o'clock, we will, okay, Kim will go to you next.
Utah doesn't have that many electoral votes.
Six.
Right, and so therefore it seems to me that there has to be more states that have a third-party candidate that wins. And where are you proposing that you're going to have more third-party candidates?
In order to keep U70 from happening.
Right.
I'm saying it was so close before with Utah going Republican before Obama was in the race. 2 electors. And I think the Republican Party now is manipulating by all these third-party runs. With any candidate getting 6 electors, none of those third-party candidates is going to get an elector. You know, Ross Perot, the most successful third party that we've seen, didn't get one.
So you think it's going to be so close that those 6 are going to throw it into the...
That no major candidate gets 270. That's what I think. And you know what, folks? I'm cheering for it. I'm praying for it. You will, if you research some of my writings before that have been published nationally, because of the success of this caucus, I will say that's the pride I have. I had demonized the selection by the 12th Amendment of a president. I didn't want this to happen. I called it Bush-Clinton nightmare on Elm Street. I thought, and the Republican Party was pushing Jeb Bush at that time, and I thought if they couldn't get him nominated, they would at least push him the way that I'm feeling now that only Romney can get. Nobody can get any electors with Romney on a third-party run. It will not happen. So I didn't like the 12th Amendment process back there early in my writings. I'm praying for it now. Because I honestly believe the media is going to hit Donald Trump so hard. And folks, I suspect it is a deal cut with Bill Clinton and Donald Trump. I honestly believe it. I have no confidence in the character of Donald Trump. I believe this is a poised promotion by Bill Clinton, the smartest politician in the history of politics. Tim?
I'd like to switch issues just for a minute.
No, I'm sorry, you can't.
I can't?
Go ahead, it's your mic.
This morning, I heard that
Can't get that rule away, that thing's really good.
the Washtenaw County Commissioners did it to us again. A 10-cent bag tax at grocery stores. 10 cents per plastic bag, 10 cents per paper bag. There is this ordinance.
Who collects that?
The grocery stores, and then they give the money to the county. It's for Washtenaw County, and it doesn't go into effect until next year, this time. And the ordinance is intended to eliminate unnecessary waste and incentivize people to be more environmentally cautious. But however, there's pending state legislation that could take away the county's ability to impose such regulations. And the bill is called Senate Bill 853. It passed through the state Senate on May 10th and awaits approval from the state house.
Well, what are you complaining about the commissioners?
Well, here's the county plans to hold off on activity enforcing the new ordinance until Earth Day next year, which is April 22nd. That gives retail grocery stores and consumers time to prepare for the implementation of the regulations. The ordinance was opposed by Commissioner Dan Smith, who I talked to today, and Ronnie Peterson of Ypsilanti. Ruth Ann Jamnick was not present. Ronnie Peterson, this is going to hurt the poor people. They're going to have to pay 10 cents per bag. They double bag a lot of these bags in the grocery store.
You know what's going to help? It's going to, some entrepreneur is going to start selling those plastic bags, which they do already. My wife's got 5 of them in the back of the car. Well, hurry with this.
I checked into this and did some checking into it to try to educate myself on it. And this is the resolution, but I talked for an hour to St. Clair County Chairman of the Commissioners, John Boehm. And in St. Clair County, they own, the county owns Smiths Creek Sanitary Landfill.
I know what it is, East Woodlands District.
And-
Hey, by the way, folks, eat that ice cream and cake. You better be eating it.
They have a bioreactor at the landfill, and it earns their county about $1 million a year. In turn, it turns methane gas produced by rotting garbage into
Tim,
energy.
hook this up to plastic bags for me.
Okay, well, Mr. Bowen told me that paper and plastic, they have a patented, not only that, but they have a patented technology in St. Clair County that speeds up the process by injecting sewage into the trash, making it break down real fast. They are having a problem. They need trash in St. Clair County, and they've been crying since we haven't had Canada's and Toronto's trash. I ran this by our commissioner.
Okay,
by
Tim,
Dan Smith.
Hang on a minute. These are the types of things, I had a conversation with you about before, you don't bring up 15 minutes before we're getting ready to close.
Okay.
These are the kind of things that I give you podium time to present.
Okay.
And folks are so tired of hearing me, they would be glad to hear you for a while. So what you do is, I'll do an email broadcast on it, and the subject matter, I'll let you present it.
Okay.
But right now, my head's spinning.
Well, just
Okay.
in a nutshell,
Do a nutshell.
Just in a nutshell, Dan Smith said, well, the people will never want a landfill owned by the county, yet Waste Management could probably buy one of these bio things for their landfill, and it could save our county millions and millions of dollars. And instead of taxing
That is your
the
nutshell.
people, instead of taxing the people at the grocery store. Oh, and a lot of people I talked to today in my precinct said, we're just going to go to the Walmarts on Belleville Road. We're going to go grocery shopping over in Canton. We're not going to grocery shop over here.
Or carry your own bags. They can't make that illegal. I mean, I'm sorry, you have the right to bring your own bags.
I want to ask a question when I get to these two guys. You haven't used the word endorse, or maybe if you did, I missed it. But are you on the record tonight saying you endorse Mitt Romney?
Oh, absolutely, I would endorse Mitt Romney. But I will vote for Donald Trump. Now let me tell you why. In the state of Michigan, if Michigan does not go Republican, the Democrats will get 270. That's how I'm looking at it. So I will vote for the 12th Amendment by voting for Donald Trump in the state of Michigan. You understand? Is that confusing? The state of Michigan, if it goes to the Democrats, they win. Because Michigan's one of those battleground states that Trump can turn into the red. So I'm going to vote for Donald Trump. So people are not going to understand this because they don't give me the kind of time that you folks have given me on this. So when anybody tells me I don't endorse Donald Trump, I'm like Rand, or Speaker of the House. I want to say name Paul Ryan. I'm like Paul Ryan. I'm going to vote for him, but I don't necessarily endorse him. Paul's not saying that. I don't endorse Donald Trump, but I'm going to vote for him this year.
Are you sure that it's involving the paper bags? Because I heard about it for plastic bags, but my paper bags go in with my recycling, so they don't go to a landfill anyway.
I've got the resolution right here. It's paper and plastic. And
Bring it up another night, Tim.
okay.
When you're giving your commissioner speech, bring that up.
Okay.
Okay, and Dick?
If you got any contacts, you need to get to the Trump people and tell them. Well, I'll start by saying a week and a quarter ago, Bob Corker, Senator of Tennessee, the newspaper said, Corker is thought to be #1 for VP, and Gingrich second, on top of the short list. All right, so if you got any way of getting to Trump people and tell them, if you want Michigan, you better not pick Bob Corker as your vice president, for the reason that the unionists absolutely despise him.
The Iran deal. The Iran deal. That was a Corker amendment. I mean, Donald Trump's #1 issue is bad deals with Iran. And he's gonna pick Corker? Yeah, well, I don't know how that.
You got any connections?
Yeah, my connections have pretty well been spent with the Trump campaign. I think not. Joe, we're gonna close here pretty soon.
I'm gonna wrap this up. I just wanted to, I guess, conclude with saying that in regards to paying tribute and honoring those who paid the ultimate sacrifice and fallen in the service of their country, I was hoping to get a few of us out there as Willow and Tea Party members out to the parade in Ypsilanti, and I was the only one there.
Well,
And
I was at a parade.
and I kind of feel that.
Back, try to make it correct.
Testing 1, 2.